What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin Davis and I love the Mark IV. The Mark IV analog version just a few months ago on my channel got one of the best 5 inches of 2020. So here we are again with the HD version. The frame looks very similar to what we had before, but there are some upgrades on this version that the original analog version doesn't have. First of all, jumping right into it, we have the F405 flight controller on here. We have 50 amp ESCs. They have a 4S version and a 6S version of this quad available, and it comes with GPS. So if you are flying down the mountain, up the mountain, if you're doing a little bit of long range with some crossfire on board, and you really want to send it out there, you want to have some confidence that if you do fail safe, traditional race quads drop to the ground if you fail safe, and that can be good and bad. In this instance, if I fail safe where we're gonna fly today, it's gonna level out, go back up to my specified height in beta flight and come back to the home point. So when I'm flying over top of cliffs and mountains, you guys have seen a lot of my videos. I usually don't do just a soccer field review. I like to go out there and really send these quads out there in some more interesting environments for you guys to see. We're gonna fly over some cliffs today, and we're gonna make this review worth your time with the Mark IV HD. So let's go ahead outside, we'll do a little bit of flying, and we'll come back in, and we'll give you my final opinion on the HD version with GPS. Here we go, guys, let's do it. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get the Mark IV HD up in the air. And the best thing about flying one of these FPV race quads with GPS is the fact that when I'm going down these cliffs like this, if I have a problem or fail safe, it's gonna level out, come up to the specified height and fly back to home. So especially when flying over water like this, it can be super sketchy to do that with something like an XM Plus receiver. XM Plus can make it out there a mile or more in range. I've range tested these receivers before, but honestly, if you're gonna do some mountain flying like this, you kind of wanna have Crossfire Nano on there, or like the standard Crossfire Micro, something like that to get you out there and not have to worry about fail-safe. But the great thing is, again, we have GPS, so if I do lose signal to my radio, it's gonna level out, come up to that specified height and fly back to me. So that's really nice. I don't have to worry about fail-safing when I'm doing a dive down these cliffs. And this is the kind of review where you're gonna see some examples of that. We're gonna do some cliff dives here. We're gonna play around with a little bit of freestyle, and I can make some comments on the durability of these frames. We can talk about performance. We could talk about the components they chose to put on this one, which I did mention before, they're quite upgraded components. So we now have the new F405 flight controller that has the upgraded USB-C port on there and the new tune. And looking at the video, when I go up high is where you can really see the tune of a quad. I mean, this thing is on rails. It is doing flips and rolls just perfectly, and you can see how well it tracks by looking at the DJI video I've recorded here from my goggles. It's outstanding. It looks like an action camera, which is kind of amazing. If you've never used DJI goggles before, when you go behind trees, your DVR will break up just a little bit in your goggle view, but it's nothing like the analog breakup. So you get much better penetration with this, and you can run up to about 1,000 milliwatt or more with the new DJI firmware hacked. The stock comes with 700 milliwatts. You can go out there for miles and miles, especially if you're using Crossfire. And if that's what you're looking for, this quad will do that, because it does have that much larger battery tray on top. You could probably get well over 2,000 milliamps on this quad. I wouldn't go much heavier into the 3,000 range, because it's probably going to start to be kind of heavy for a 5 inch. The 4S 3000 gets pretty big, but you could test it out and see how it does if you want to do a close-in project testing out that battery. The thing is that if you send it out too far, it could overheat the motors with too much weight. So think about that versus adding your GoPro and a larger battery on there. It's going to stress out the power system just a little more, especially if you have a headwind. All kinds of things to think about in this hobby. But right here, you see it twitch back and forth? That's because I had the transmitter on the other side of myself. And sometimes with these XM Plus receivers, it will fail safe. So typically right there, if I didn't have GPS on board, it would have dropped into the trees and I'd be taking that walk to go find the quad. The nice thing is that this quad does have a beeper on there So you can just flip your beeper switch and walk right up to the quad, but I risk damaging my action camera as well. So today I don't have an action camera on here, adding that extra bit of GoPro weight, which is also nice because without the addition of the GoPro in here, it's flying even better, a little lighter, and really tracks really well. It orbits around myself on that rock really nice. But it will fly slow, smooth, and again, look at the DVR when I go up high and see if you see any jitter, or what we call jello, and I'm pretty sure you won't see hardly any. The tune is just spot on with this quad. So I'm gonna get it back up in the air. We're gonna do some more flying with another battery. And here we're just gonna kind of fly through the trees a little bit close in and get some of those money shots. Really beautiful up here in northern Washington around these islands. There are hundreds and hundreds of miles of beautiful islands and vistas up here that are just spectacular. And again, I like to try to, get out there in the wild with my reviews for you guys and just try not to do just a backyard type of review or in the baseball field. But with that comes some risks of being able to lose my gear. And today, happily, I'm happy to report that we still have the Mark IV HD. But man, what a beautiful flying quad. This quad just really locked in. And again, it's from Gep, and I was expecting that we would have something this nice. And this is really where you see jello. And right there, we have a little bit of a fail-safe because I am on the back side of the transmitter. So right there, if you see that happen, hold your transmitter up high above your head and you should get the signal back to your radio. So that's important. Try not to fly behind yourself too much. And I actually didn't see hardly any breakup there. The DJI goggles do quite well when you do come around the backside because they have that quadversity antenna set up on the top. Now back down below the trees, getting in kind of close to these rocks. And a little punch out for you guys there, boom. Straight down look, back down, straight down. So much fun to fly this quad. And this quad, go back and watch my original review of the Mark IV analog version. If you want like a $200 or $225 Freestyle ripper, the analog version will rip like crazy. And this one is pretty much the same thing, but even flies a little bit better than the original analog one. So I think we're spot on here with, this is the type of quad where if you have the money to spend on it, this is going to be the experience that you really enjoy. This quad is worth every penny because the greatest thing again about Geprc is you pay for quality here with Geprc. Never had a problem with any of their quads on my channel in over 5 years. You can go back again and look at the proof of that. I've done Geprc since probably reviews since some of the first quads they ever released in the DIY kits, all the way back to the Cheetah, if you guys remember that one. The Cheetah, I believe they also had a Chimp. Some really cool early FPV race quad frames. They've been in it for a long time, so super nice and locked in. Just loving that. And now back up for another boost. I'm using a 4S 1550 if you guys are wondering today. That's gonna get you around a 6-minute flight time, a really nice long flight time. You can milk it out a little bit better if you're just cruising, maybe even get 7 minutes out of it. Really nice, high quality orbits. It almost looks like some kind of a DJI type drone, but I think the video looks even better with these type of drones. They're just not so boring. The straight ahead shot is kind of old for 2020. And a lot of folks that I know in LA and Hollywood are now using these for Subaru commercials and all kinds of just different perspective. And these are fast enough to be able to chase motorcycles, ATVs, Polaris, 4x4 vehicles. You can do drift car racing with them and come home with some amazing video. So if you're a professional, this one would absolutely handle a full day's worth of professional shooting. Or just some fun. If you just want to get out there and have a great experience and be able to see what you're doing FPV wise, the digital experience is where it's at. I mean, it's just hands down way better than analog. It's like 1080p versus old school VHS tape. 2 thumbs up for this quad. Let's go ahead and give some final thoughts on the Mark IV HD. Here we go. All right guys, welcome back. So I have to say that this particular version, it does actually fly extremely well, and it is a Geprc quad, so I knew that it was going to fly good out of the box. I had plenty of camera tilt here. I've got about 30 degrees camera tilt on the very front. And one thing that I have to note about this particular version of this frame, it is different than the original Mark IV analog frame. It does have the back plate back here, which is all TPU mounted back here. This GPS is removable if you decide to remove it. And it looks like it's the BN220 smaller version of the GPS. You can get up to about 15 sats on here. And also, by the way, if you have DJI goggles, which you have to be able to fly this quad, you can see all of your telemetry on board now, because DJI did a firmware update maybe 6 months ago now that has the home point arrow pointing back to home, latitude, longitude, all that good stuff. And why is latitude, longitude important on a GPS drone? Because if you do crash, say if you had a complete blackout, your DJI goggles DVR has the last known coordinates for the latitude and longitude on the screen. And in DJI goggles, the recorded video on board, you will not see any of the OSD. You will have to go back and look at the DVR in your goggles, and you can choose to overlay the OSD. Once you do that, you got your latitude, longitude right there, and you can walk up and get your quad back. So that's the good news about having GPS on any type of quad that you're doing long range with, or any type of fixed wing aircraft. It's very, very important to be able to see your lat and longitude. Now this quad is also very strikingly similar to the original Mark IV. It does have that classic long body, True X style frame. It does have replaceable arms on here as well. It has TPU bumpers. It has a TPU mount in the very back for your Immortal T for doing crossfire if you decide to do that. It does have a little shorty antenna back here, and this is a Geprc branded DJI single antenna. It's the Vista, so we don't have dual antennas like on the full-blown Air module, but this lightens it up a lot. And now that they have the upgraded firmware on the DJI Vista and the Air module, we have 50 megabit on there, so the video looks even better now. So honestly, you could probably record just what you have here in your DJI goggles. You're going to get a little bit of breakup now and then, but the video actually looks pretty good. You don't have to carry a GoPro if you don't want to, but if you're looking to get 4K versions of your videos, you can absolutely put that camera mount on the front like we've done previously on the Mark IV series. No problem. This quad will carry any action camera on the market. And I have to talk about the power system on here. I have the 2306.5 motors, and these are 2450 kV. If you want to get the 6S version, you have to get the one with the 1850 kV motors to be able to support 6S battery. And if you're gonna ask me which one should I get, the 4S or the 6S, I would go with the 6S because I like the extra bit of power that 6S gives me, and I like the longer flight time. So you can run quite a big pack on this because you have tons of what I call truck bed on the top of this quad. Look at this. This is probably about 6 to 7 inches across the very top. So you could probably even run something as large as like a 2400 4S on here, or getting up to 2000 milliamp for a 6S battery. And the strap is quite large, so you can accommodate a much larger battery. They give you 2 size straps in the box. You get a shorter strap and a longer strap. And since this one does have the upgraded flight controller on here, it does have a new style connector for beta flight on here. On the other side right here, it does have a USB-C port, so it is the more newer version of this F4 flight controller. I have to say the tune is actually pretty decent. I'm happy with the tune. Also in the very front right here, we have a full-size beeper, which comes in handy if you have to go find it off in the weeds somewhere. And Geprc provided me with the XM Plus receiver in here as well, which we did have a couple instances where we went into fail-safe and that GPS automatically kind of leveled off the quad and saved me from crashing down the cliffs. And that was super important for today's review, that I had GPS on there, because I was flying in that situation where if you have a failure, there's likely to be no getting the quad back in that situation right next to the water and a big huge cliff with a drop off. But let's go ahead and talk about some final impressions about the Mark IV HD. I mean, what we have here, guys, is basically a late 2020 version of my favorite Mark IV, which for close to a year now, they've been releasing versions of this quad. The Mark IV frame is very popular, but now they've kind of brought it up to the top echelon of 5-inch race quads, or long range 5-inch if you want. So now that you have GPS on here, you can really feel much more comfortable sending it out there with your GoPro. And if you do have that sort of failure or communication failure, low battery, you have 3 different instances that you can bring this quad home. You have switch, you can do switch return to home if you get freaked out and you can't see where you're going. You can also rely on the low battery return to home and the signal loss return to home. So it's nice that you have 3 different versions on there for getting your quad back to you and being able to regain stick control. Now you can also fly this in 3 different modes as well. You can fly it in stability, horizon, and acro mode. And most of you guys at this level are most likely going to be flying it in acro. It flies beautifully and the quality is high. There's tons of upgrades on here, and I think this one is going to be absolutely worth the money. If you're looking for something to send it, that means just like send it way out there, up the mountain or down the mountain, Mark IV HD is going to be the supercar of GPS 5-inch bind and flies this year. There's not going to be a whole lot to be able to compete with this quad. There are some smaller ones coming down the market under 250 grams, and I'll try to review those coming up on the channel for you guys. But so much cool, fun stuff to fly this year, and this is one of the sweetest quads that I've had my hands on this year. So Geprc just keeps killing it. Guys, stay tuned and do subscribe on the channel for all the newest, latest and greatest quads. They're sending me all the best ones out there, from Flywoo to iFlight to Geprc. They will keep them coming, and I'll keep the reviews coming to you guys. So take care wherever you are in the country, and let me know how your day is going and if you got to fly today. I'm Justin Davis, guys. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.